This is my review on the Novation Launchkey 37 Mark III.
The sequence.
What is going on, peoples? We are back at it again, and I've been saying to myself I was going to get a new MIDI controller for the house very soon. And then all of a sudden, Novation came out with the news of the Launchkey 37 Mark III. And yeah, I was enthused for many different reasons why I will get into a little later in this video. But I want to just talk about this offhand as far as my first impression. So one of my biggest first impressions about this unit is its size. Now you can't see it, but if I go back a little bit, you can see that it's not that big, but it's 37 keys. Now, the reason why I'm making a big deal about the 37 keys is because it is the same darn size as my Korg Tactile 25. So the biggest advantage of this is the size, the form factor of it, because something that had 25 keys is the same length as this. So we're talking about 21 inches in width, and in height, they both share about the same real estate. And it's crazy because this has way more functionality and many other things that I'm going to talk about a little later. Now, with all products, there are some things that I have to say as far as cons, and we're going to talk about a lot of pros and cons of this unit, but I want to go ahead and point out this right here. Now, the main thing I want to point out about the location of these right here, the MIDI out, the USB type B to type A, and the sustain pedal. Now, it being on the back is fine, but this big logo right here is taking up a lot of real estate to where they could have centered those connections, and it would have made it a whole lot better for people that want to keep this flush to a certain surface and build on that. Otherwise, they might as well have put this on the side. And yeah, and I actually seen that gripe with my Akai MPK Mini Mark III review, and I kind of get it now, seeing that it does directly affect me versus me having the MPK Mini to where, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. One of my main issues with this is that it has fixed encoders. I wanted to point that out because I think a lot of MIDI controller companies need to take away these fixed encoders and use endless encoders and not use sliders either, because when you have fixed values and you go to a different parameter or a track or whatever you're trying to tweak and you return back and it's up here, yeah, what's going to happen is that fixed encoder is going to make that parameter flip back to what it was previously, and then we have all kinds of mixing issues and all that stuff. They're just not good for that. Please stop using fixed encoders when you're making these controllers. But other than that though, I think these pads are pretty good. They're definitely smaller than most pads that are out on the market. They're more comparable to the Ableton Push 2, and I think the Ableton Push 2 is a little wider, and these are a little taller in terms of these pads, but these pads feel pretty decent, and more importantly, the keyboard itself feels extremely good. The keyboard feels extremely good. So let's go ahead and travel to the top-down view, and we're gonna talk about this more so with the software and every other thing about this that I really like. So here it is in the flesh, the Launchkey 37, and it looks really nice. I like the layout of it and all that stuff from the top-down view. It looks pretty cool, but what I wanna do here is point you to the website. Make sure that you register it so that you will be able to get any information that you need. I'm an Ableton Live 10 user, and if you try to just plug it up, you will have no dice when it comes to making sure that it works fully with your DAW. So make sure that you do that, okay? Upon registering, you'll get a useful video like the one that you see on the screen here of how you will set up the Launchkey and how it will function. Of course, it comes with the Ableton Live Lite if you want to just jump into it and you'll have Ableton Live, but you want that experience. But it'll tell you basically everything that you need to do to be able to set up the controller, in which I have the 37 keys. So let's go ahead and get into other things more important than me talking about this. If you're one of those special cases, then you definitely will have to install your Novation drivers. So let's start talking about the functionality of this, because it actually has some pretty cool things about it. Main thing I really like about these are the keys. The keys feel really good. So the keys feel real good, and I feel like I actually can play on this versus like a 25 key keyboard, and the size and form factor of this makes it easy to use. Now, let's venture off into some of the features. One of the main things that I really like about it is that if you don't know how to play the keys, well, guess what? There is a baby feature for you, a hand holding feature, and that's scale mode. So basically how that works is if you hit the scale mode and you hit shift, you can select different keys. So D major, E major. You can also see over here where you can select your different scales. Like you have harmonic, pentatonic, major, minor, all that good stuff that is already here. And you know, it's not a lot of scales, but you know, you have the scales that you need. So I have an F minor right now. And if I was to play any of the keys right now, go ahead and go into function here. You can hear that I'm playing in key no matter where I'm at. And that's really good for beginners. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are going to really enjoy about this particular keyboard here. One thing I do like about this as well is if that's too much for you to play on the different keys, well, you can hold shift and go into a scale chord mode. And from here, where you mess with the down arrow, you can play sevenths or ninths. The top row right now is sevenths, and these are ninths. And you can go to 6 ninths. So that's really cool. I find that function to be very helpful for anybody, even if you are somebody that really already knows how to play the keys, because of other things I'm going to talk about down the pipeline. So what I'm going to do is go into ARP, and now I'm going to go ahead and play some other progression here. I'm already out of scale mode. It's a really crazy sound. For those who are wondering what sound that is, it's actually out of my Electro X pack here that I did with Imperial. Now with ARPs, of course, one thing that I want to point out here is that you can select what kind of ARPs and what type of style. So you can do triplets, of course. Let's go ahead and play that progression again. You can do, by holding shift, you can do 132. You can do, of course, 1/16. And you can latch too as well, so by pressing shift and ARP again, and that access all of these little small features. And if I let go, it's doing this thing. Now I can press shift and then go into 1/4 and go into the different speeds. My only complaint about it right now is since I'm in Ableton Live 10.1.6, it still hasn't latched onto it or whatnot. I went to preferences and it's still not fully functional, so I don't have access to that button or anything like that. But anyways, more or less to the good things, I'm gonna go ahead and press shift and we're gonna enter mutate. And now you're gonna see some really cool stuff. You can already hear it. It's generating music from that ARP. Now I'm gonna press shift and mess with this parameter right here. Now if I dial in more to the right, it gets really expressive. But if you go to a certain point, you'll start to hear notes that don't fit into that progression. So you gotta be careful. So I'm gonna go back down to 80%. You can adjust the ARP tempo right here. So theoretically, since I'm not able to go into a certain BPM on here, unfortunately, go into Ableton, let's get a 120 here. You can see that it's not latched on, but you can control that since that now I'm in 120 BPM, I can just go over here and just press shift and just dial in the proper BPM for it. And now I'm good to go. So that's actually something that you want to keep in mind. You can also do swing. Gate. And have some really cool stuff. Just generating MIDI notes. So that's really dope. I really find that to be one of the better features about this MIDI controller altogether. Yeah, you have other settings too that you can control. You can use these track buttons over here, and you can set, it looks like you can set up like keys, chords, drums, and different things. You can even turn off like the light show. You can turn down the brightness. You know, if it's too bright for you, you can turn it down. And those are things that are pretty useful. I find that a lot of devices these days don't allow you to control brightness, which can overall affect a presentation such as this right here. And, you know, this doesn't get in the way. Again, you have scale chords, of course, and going into different scale chords will allow you to play up here, of course. I just want to make sure that I did that again. You can have drum mode. Of course, this drum mode, of course, would affect these pads right over here, which is I believe a 2x8 layout. This is a 2x8 layout here, so you know it's a little different from the MPC layout or anything like that. This is more like the Electribe layout traditionally. So, but that's for real estate, and I believe that they use the right kind of real estate for a MIDI controller, and that's one thing I can give them a double thumbs up on there. So as you can see here, if I was to play, you know, something different, it's velocity sensitive. Mod wheel works. And the pitch wheel works. So these are all native things that you will need for your MIDI controller to be decent at best, and it exceeds decent. Deviate mode is one of the things that I haven't experienced, so I don't know if I should even speak on it or not. One of the things I will say though, as far as deviate, I just go into deviate and see if, you know, if I can figure out. It has changed the rhythm of what the progression is as far as the latch art. So that's actually pretty dope. That's what random mode does. Let's see what, it's giving me different random chords to generate. That's actually awesome. Wow. So this thing is really, this is a gift that keeps on giving in terms of inspiration. And that's where I think this made me want to buy this in the first place. The Launchkey 37 key is really good at that. That's for sure. These keys feel really good. Like, that's one thing I will say. These keys are very, very, very quality. And that is something I think a lot of people are going to take away from this if they're going to make beats and stuff like that. Small form factor too at that. And, you know, once I can get it to map correctly to Ableton Live, I think this will take it to another level. But I more likely would just probably use this with my MPC when I'm at the crib, and it's going to take over my main spot, and the Core Tactile 25 is going to say goodbye for now.